Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and welcome to the Girl Meets World review. Last time we dove into something of a tease of an episode of Girl Meets New Year with not too much to look into deeply. This week, oh man, something way more important. If you haven't already seen the full episode, I'll give you the spoiler alert now in case you want to be spared of any details. With all that said, let's dig into Girl Meets STEM. This episode kicks off in a new locale, that being the science classroom. It's interesting how the show is gradually giving us more and more sets to experience. First, it was just Mr. Matthews' class, then we expanded into literature, and now we've got a science lab. Riley is paired up with Farkle for a midterm science experiment that involves figuring out the identity of an unknown substance. Immediately, we're treated to the crux of the episode when Riley confronts Farkle for wanting to do all the science, while Riley does nothing but drop a marble. Riley decides not to drop the marble, feeling that doing so would mean damaging the scientific inquiry of her and the girls in her class. She is accurate, since the research does tell us that around the middle school grade level, female students start to drift away from the sciences, amongst other topics, a statistic quoted several times in the episode. But Riley wants to change all that and not simply be the one dropping the literal or metaphorical marble. This leads to something of a boys versus girls clash amongst the ranks, leading to the episode's funniest dialogue exchanges, including, yes, another great moment out of Yogi. Actually, almost all the classmates that barely have any lines in most episodes have a fair amount in this one, and it's nice to see. I'll throw this out there right now. I have a very limited understanding of feminism, but I do fully support women's rights. However, that being said, the girls seem to take this confrontation a bit far. Now, hear me out on this. Farkle is very much in the wrong for wanting to hog all of the science work to himself, but that's really who he is. He's a boy genius, and in all likelihood, he'd do the exact same thing if he was paired with another boy. The girls make valid points about wanting to engage more with the sciences, but the trigger event just doesn't equate to the reaction here. Farkle is an amazing friend, and has been for every single episode. If you need a reminder, go rewatch Girl Meets Farkle's Choice and then tell me that this guy could ever justifiably be called a sexist pig. It's just a little over the line for me. I do like how this episode incorporated the bit with Augie and Ava. I like it that they made Ava the one who was better at sports because the point they're making here is not that one's a girl and the other's a guy, it's that not trying should never be rewarded. Topanga understands that, and I fully support that frame of thinking. It's 2016, people. We all know that participation trophies are a joke. Let's leave them in the past where they belong. Getting back to the science, eventually the class learns that the experiment wasn't about science per se. The science teacher purposely made the boy-girl pairings across the board as a social experiment of sorts that most students end up failing. That little twist is a pretty brilliant one, especially with the scene Farkle and Riley share with seeing through the clear container together. At the end of the day, both Augie and Riley are willing to try harder at something they have an interest in, rather than just give up, and that's what makes this a very solid episode. However, it's not a flawless episode. If the partner pairing was Riley and Lucas, for example, the setup would have been a lot more believable, because even if Lucas has some interest in science, it by no means defines him in the way it does Farkle. That means that if he still insisted that Riley just throw the marble into the beaker, then the whole girls versus boys escalation would have made a great deal more sense. We also could have gotten a lot of potentially hilarious Maya Farkle moments with them as a pair, with one being lazy and the other being overeager as it pertains to science. Now, some of you might disagree with some of my points, but I feel like if Girl Meets World is going to bring feminism into the equation of a Disney Channel show, then they'd better be absolutely sure they're dealing with inequality and not just a misunderstanding between friends. All that said, this is a fine episode for the reasons I've mentioned, and it's great to see that by the end, the females in the class do genuinely want to fight and work to be more than what might be expected of them, and that's a very powerful lesson. Especially with Topanga being such a great role model for girls that don't want to follow whatever is traditional, despite what others might say about them. This is Girl Meets World once again taking a step in the right direction, but stumbling a little bit. Let's be honest, they got this episode half right. The last thing we want is for every little boy versus girl argument to turn into something about feminism and equality, because that's not always the case, and it's important to remember that and understand the difference. In this particular situation, Farkle was not being sexist. He was being a nerd, and I can definitely relate to that. But the important thing here is the fact that Girl Meets World keeps taking chances, and keeps pushing the envelope with their programming, and that should continue to be encouraged. No show is perfect, but what they're doing with a lot of the important issues is doing them justice, and that's why I'm excited as anyone for Season 3. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, help me out with the likes, subs, and share it all over social media. And check out some of the other awesome Disney Brain videos on my channel. Girl Meets Money premieres 2 weeks from now, so get excited. Until then...
Understanding the current climate of the room, Zay chooses to sit here. Men, am I right? Get out! Now I get it.